Welcome into this Big Ten Today on a Tuesday. We are presented by Gatorade, Dave Revson and Jake Butt. The show goes away for 2 days for Hoops Media Days over the next 2 days, which is going to be great. We'll get you set for what should be fabulous basketball seasons in the Big Ten. Women tomorrow, the men on Thursday. All that said, Jake, we got to get everyone their fill. So there is a ton to discuss here.
At this time last week, I was hearing some people say, well, there's no top 5 matchup in the conference. What can we expect? What a weekend of games, surprises, upsets, comebacks, great stories. I was just blown away. This is why you love football, Dave.
It is going to be tremendous. Yogi Roth is with us as he is every Tuesday. Yogi, I believe the term you like to use for a weekend like this one is a banger. Am I right?
Bangers only. That's right. That's exactly right. It was that, to your point. I think the three of us are just going to have to be on FaceTime the next couple of days just to talk through the rest of the upcoming games, because it might be another one this weekend. I think my biggest takeaway as we sit here on a Tuesday is that in the preseason, we had Texas and Penn State at 1 and 2, and here we sit heading into week 7, and neither in the top 25. Like, who could have predicted that would happen in the sport that we love? But that is why you have the games. It's why maybe you get lucky enough, you have a couple bangers.
And yes, and number 4, Clemson, not in the top 25 either. They were preseason number 4. So you got 3 of the top 4 after 1 week in October that are not in the top 25. We dive into our big story as we take a look at who is in the top 25, a snapshot of the top of the college football world. We have 3 Big Ten teams in the top 7, and again, 2 of them play this week, as Shake was alluding to. Number 3, Oregon hosts the 7th-ranked Hoosiers. Number 1, Ohio State heads to 17th-ranked Illinois. So you've got 4 of the 5 ranked Big Ten teams with head-to-head battles. The other ranked team is Michigan, and they are on the road against a USC team that is among the others receiving votes in the poll. So there's a ton to discuss here. Yogi, let's start with a team conspicuously absent in that poll, though, and that is Penn State. They were a top 10 team going into last week after the narrow double overtime loss at home to Oregon. They fall completely out of the poll after losing to a UCLA team that not only hadn't won all year, they hadn't led all year. Explain to the best of your ability what happened in Pasadena.
Well, there's a lot to it, and I know we can't dedicate the entire show to this game, but what we could if we wanted to. I want to start with this, and we were at training camp. UCLA, I remember saying, I think this team might be undefeated as they host Penn State. To your point, they weren't anywhere near that. They had fired their coaches, their coordinators are no longer there, but they had players. They had players. They weren't Pickerington North. No offense to your team, Jake. They had players. They had the number 1 transfer quarterback in all of college football, according to many people, I think all of us included, Nico Imaliave. So part of it, I do think we have to say, hey, UCLA, they finally looked the part. Now, the other side of this, of course, is Penn State did not look the part that we thought they'd be in the preseason. They missed tackles. They didn't win at the line of scrimmage consistently. They couldn't run the football. All things that teams did against Penn State, including teams that are nowhere near the top 25. So I think when you put all that together, you're kind of dumbfounded. And you say, well, what just happened? Okay, so then you break it down. You study it and you try to watch it without the voices calling the game. And to me, I noticed a few things. One, Nico Imaliave was playing completely free. And by that, I mean he was getting the ball out to his first read 98% of the time. There are 2 snaps that I found in the game where he was going from one to something else. Ball was out. He was playing efficiently. 2, it was QB run game. It was designed runs like quarterback lead, quarterback draw. You saw that when they needed it. But then it was the ones that aren't designed. It's the scrambling that we haven't really seen enough of this season. And that just broke the back at times of Penn State. And then they jumped on them. And we've talked long enough, fellas, to know that teams that are struggling, they hope things go well every Saturday. They hope things go well. But once they start to turn that way, there is a confidence that just continue to brew. And I felt like that's what we saw, whether it was Jerry Neuheisel and his style of calling plays, whether it's Tim Skipper and his style of leadership, whether it's the players, saying, hey, we're all in or we're out, right? That's what Nico Imaliave asked the players earlier in the week. Said, if you're not in, hit the road, basically. And they all threw down. And I think we just saw that combination of all those elements, and that turned into a storm that Penn State could not weather, not enough time in the ball game. Thought eventually they'd come back and win it. But I got to give UCLA credit. This is a historic win for the records, but in LA, where I reside, it is a historic win just in college football for that program, one they will not forget anytime soon.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the great wins, certainly one of the great upsets in the history of their program. And I'm with you, Yogi. That's where I start. I give credit to Tim Skipper. I had their game against Northwestern, and as I'm listening to his press conference, I said, man, this guy just exudes positive energy, great energy. And how valuable is that for a team that's struggling? But how about the lasting image is the Bruin players carrying Jerry Neuheisel off the field on their shoulder. I mean, that's like a movie-type moment. You wouldn't believe it if we scripted it in a movie. But that's what football's about, and what a joyful experience for a team that's just had a season full of turmoil. I give a ton of credit to Nico Iamaleava. And on the flip side, though, for Penn State is I did not feel that they were prepared, certainly not to a level of their expectations that we talked about it being a national title contender, and a few reasons why. Just basic scouting on UCLA's offense. If you go to ESPN and you search leading passer and leading rusher, it's been Nico all season. He's their leading passer and leading rusher. They put the entire weight of the world on his shoulders. There was no spy on him until late in the fourth quarter. James Franklin came out and said, well, we had Tony Rojas. That was going to be our spy, but he gets injured. It just doesn't matter. You have to have a spy going into the game, and certainly after the first or second quarter, or at some point before the fourth quarter, because his legs were killing your defense in the biggest moments. Special teams, the onside kick. Give a ton of credit for the Bruins for seeing that. Watching that back, that was obvious. Someone on Penn State's coaching staff has got to see this and bring this to the staff as a whole and say, this is going to burn us in a big moment. It burned us probably when they least expected it on the road for UCLA. On the flip side for the offense, you know, Singleton has done some great things for Penn State, and he's still a phenomenal football player. I believe that. But right now, Kaytron Allen is the hot hand. And I know they like to split these carries 50-50. It just can't be the case going forward. Kaytron Allen is the clear RB1 right now. He needs 80% of the carries until Singleton gets back on himself. I think a little bit of time away from carrying the load could help Singleton. And the last thing I'll say, two more positive things. You know, coming off the Oregon game, we were wondering, you know, what should our expectations be of Drew Aller? I thought he played his heart out. I thought he played a great game.
He's a leading rusher, too.
Leading rusher. Yeah. I mean, he literally put his heart on the field and nearly willed his team back to victory. Great job for Drew. We can build off of that. With all these narratives, everything that's said, you could feel the team carrying the weight. Somehow the leadership has to just move that to the side, because the black and white truth of this situation is you have two losses. One is a double overtime loss at home to a top 3 team in college football. You also have two opportunities. If you beat Ohio State or Indiana, you're right back in this thing. But you have to somehow, and it starts with the leadership, remove the weight from your players in your locker room so they can get back to playing their best game. Yogi, we have not seen Penn State at their best. We have not seen 60 minutes of Penn State football at their best. If they start playing their best, who knows what the season could be?
Right. I'm with you 100%. The best news on their schedule, even though I understand the struggles against top 10 teams, the best news is that they've got 2 chances here to prove it. Have we seen evidence to support the notion that they would win both those games? We have not. However, we know how loaded that roster is.
Yes.
We know how many good players they have, how many all-conference players they have back from a year ago, how many players they have who are on the NFL radar, who decided to come back rather than go to the draft. There is no reason that group can't put together 2 great games and get themselves back into that discussion. Again, we just haven't seen evidence to support it. What we have seen is a massive upset. And for more on how it happens, an amazing game, amazing story, some great perspective there. There was no upset for number 1, Ohio State rolling past Minnesota. And the Buckeyes defensively have looked the part all year. The offense is starting to look the part as well. And I think that's a scary proposition for the rest of the Big Ten and the rest of college football.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, one of the big storylines for college football as a whole this year has been the parity, the upsets. We just talked about one, and yet Ohio State somehow, with everything they lost last year, seems to be better in that they're separating from the pack. I agree with you, Dave, that was their best offensive performance of the season. Jeremiah Smith needs no introduction, but one of the big question marks was Brian Hartline as a play caller. One of my favorite plays of the game is Carnell Tate's big touchdown, how they used Jeremiah Smith on the motion. Minnesota's entire defense comes up, and you leave Carnell Tate one-on-one. They have multiple guys that can beat one-on-one coverage, including Max Clear. That was his best game of the season. That's a 3-headed monster where we haven't seen it all come together this year. Also, I can't believe I'm saying this. I think the offensive line is better. Austin Sareveld, their left tackle. Luke Montgomery, their left guard. Road grading dudes. It's scary. Bo Jackson as a running back. They're clearly giving him the keys to that running back room. It's scary for the rest of the conference. And then on the flip side, for defense, a few things. Caleb Downs is maybe the best player in all of college football. But maybe Arvell Reese is even better than him or has been better than him this year. It's that scary. And Yogi, I know you're high on Matt Patricia. What blows my mind is they seem to have more pitches in their Rolodex every single week on third down and in their sub packages. It's like a fresh playbook every week. I don't know how you game plan for this defense.
Yeah, this defense, in a word, is just filthy. Every time I watch them, I'm just like, God, like it's so impressive to watch. And I think even after hearing PJ Fleck talk post-game and even earlier this week, they did everything they could, right? They drive the ball right down the field the first drive, and they go, okay, here come the ghosts. We got a weekend. We got a banger weekend in college football. They go 1 of 11 on third down. I mean, the only one they converted, I think, was on that drive. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't have a lot of penalties. That's how good Ohio State is. And to your point, and to even his point, post-game, it is hard to adjust that quickly in game because you're seeing so many fronts and coverages and blitz packages, to your point, Jake, that don't necessarily marry up based on every other game you have studied. There's just so much you see. So what do you have to do? You have to react. You have to be a pure progression-based offense, in my opinion, against Ohio State, which is from 1 to 2 to 3, regardless of the defense. Well, it's easy to say that, and most college offenses are that. But when you're playing against NFL caliber players at every level that, to your point, are playing out of their minds, and to me, playing with such freedom, it is hard. I mean, Minnesota runs a tunnel screen. It looks like a gash, and Arvell Reese looks like he's blocked. He just beats the block. He just beats the block, and that happened time and time again. Schematically, they're in the right spot. I think they're a bear to prepare for. And then the way that they're playing discipline. They look like the #1 team in America. They don't look like they have many holes. And then to your point of Julian, we talked about it last week of like, hey, Ohio State fans, take a beat. Like this offense, just trust it. And you watched him, to your point, down the seam against Max Clare, gets hit in the face. How about the shot to Tate to the sideline where he just layers it the only spot he could before going out of bounds? I mean, you're just watching his game evolve. And I think that the way that Ryan Day and company are bringing him along, granted, they have all the weapons and ability to do it slowly and efficiently, but it is a blueprint of how you continue to generate confidence for a young quarterback. And look out. I mean, here they come. They got to go on the road. This one's going to be awesome this weekend against Illinois, but this team doesn't look like they have many holes.
Yeah, confidence is a great word, and there's a swagger, and somehow a team that has, this is where they're used to being #1 team in college football, they seem to play with a chip on their shoulder. You know, they play with a tenacity, and to me, Dave, I can't help but think back to after Ohio State wins the national championship last year, they send all these beloved Buckeyes to the NFL, and then it shifts to spring ball, and the current players on the roster go and meet with Coach Day and say, hey, Coach Day, can you take down some of this national title memorabilia? This is our team now. We want to write our own story. And that's what you're seeing is the big question is, how are they going to replace all these guys? And I'm left here looking at the film wondering, are they better? Can I actually say that right now? It's scary. It's a scary proposition.
I think they are not yet better on offense, but they are trending in that direction. And that's what's scary. And the defense, I mean, yeah, you're #1 in the nation scoring defense last year, #1 in the nation scoring defense this year. You give up 25 points in 5 games.
It's just nuts.
It's absurd. It's a huge challenge for Illinois, and we'll talk about the Illini, their opponent, coming up this weekend. Illinois taking home the Cannon Trophy for the second straight time, topping Purdue 43-27. First time they have won consecutive games in that series in 23 years. Illini rolled up 507 yards of total offense, 339 of them in the first half. As we mentioned, they've got the big showdown with Ohio State. Going to be a hugely hyped game in Champaign. Yogi, thoughts on Illinois coming off that win over Purdue?
Well, it was awesome to be there. First rivalry game ever called here in this league. So it was a blast. Crowd was rocking. It was back and forth. The Breakfast Club was up early for the noon game. You know what I'm talking about?
You guys did a nice job of highlighting them. Yes.
Hey, you know, sometimes you gotta just tell the story as it is.
Yes, you did.
But the story of Illinois to me, of course, Hank Beatty, absolute star. Luke Altmaier, career day. But I'm going to go in the offensive line. Josh Kreutz doesn't start. He's captain. He's the center. And I thought we just watched this Illinois offensive front adjust as the game went on. TJ McMillan was the guy who ended up getting the start. He practiced all week for them, so they were confident in it. But it was still a bunch of things coming in front of him, a bunch of movement up front. And I thought it was great to watch him evolve as the game went on. I think that was a huge part of it. Obviously, giving up too many explosive plays defensively, but they created a bunch. And to me, the offense, the efficiency, the ball out. We talked about Nico Imaliaven getting the ball out. Luke Altmaier. I mean, he's got mastery of this Barry Lunney system in an incredible way. That was my biggest takeaway, saying, okay, you're going to throw everything at him. And I thought Purdue did. I mean, they tried to change looks after the snap, pre-snap, different pressures. After the first 2 drives, it didn't really matter. I mean, Luke Altmaier was on it all game long. So I think it was a really important game for Illinois for obvious reasons. They're coming back to the state of Indiana, a road trip. They were on a bus. I mean, it was a big deal for them to avenge that loss a couple weeks ago against IU. They did that. They get a trophy, and now here they go. Obviously, a huge one, to your point, coming up on Saturday.
Yo, I'll take it a step forward with the Altmaier conversation. I mean, we have to ask, you know, does he have a chance? If not already, is he the greatest quarterback in Illinois history? I mean, you're putting up the numbers. He's got to be up there. Yeah. I mean, we got to start having the conversation.
They've had some good ones, but he's in that conversation for sure.
I mean, they've won 14 of their last 18 games. You're talking about 19 of 22. I believe there was some drops in there as well, so the numbers would look even better. Career high, 390 yards. He's also a playmaker with his legs, and he had a receiving touchdown on the season as well. I mean, the guy can seriously do everything in his relationship with Hank Beatty. Clearly, they're one of the best duos in the conference. They're going to need it, though. And I'll steal some words from Brett Bielema because the conversation's changing once again. They understand what this season has the chance to be. And now, coming against Ohio State, the secondary, I understand the injuries, but it seems like Bielema and some of the players are talking about miscues, missed assignments, blown coverages, giving up 2 40-plus yard touchdowns to Purdue. You obviously can't have that against Ohio State. So this is a week where Aaron Henry as a defensive coordinator comes from that Ryan Walters tree. They like to be aggressive and play man coverage. Seems to be like he's playing more zone coverage, a little bit conservative. I don't know what has to happen this week, but got to find some tweaks. Can't give any easy ones to Ohio State, and they'll need Altmaier to continue to be Luke Altmaier.
This is what worries me heading into this game is the defense. I mean, you take the power conference opponents only for Big Ten teams, so you sort out some of these non-conference games against lesser opponents. There's no team in the Big Ten that's giving up more points per game. There's no team in the Big Ten that's giving up more yards per game than Illinois is. It's not a great recipe right now against Ohio State with the way that offense is clicking. That said, leading the Big Ten in turnover margin, there's a lot of positive things happening on that defense, but they're going to need to play better than they have defensively to have a shot at pulling that huge upset. So Illinois trying to stay in the playoff conversation, as is Michigan. What did you take from what was a pretty comfortable win, I'd say, after the first quarter against Wisconsin?
Yeah, it was a great drive for opening drive for Wisconsin. I give them a ton of credit. Like that drive, they had the perfect play calls for the pressure that Wink Martindale was bringing. But then after that, I mean, Michigan surrendered nothing. So I had a few takeaways here. And I want to start with one guy as an individual and say, Rod Moore, it is great to see you back on the field. That journey that he's got, and I've had ACL injuries, but this guy's, he deserves all the good things that have happened to him, and it doesn't deserve any of the negatives and challenges. But that's not the way he approaches it. He's just been focused, and to see him back on the field making plays, an interception, nearly had a pick six on a tight end screen. I mean, the crowd would have exploded there. Great job from Rod Moore. I'm also going to do a little politicking here. Justice Haynes, the running back, I believe deserves to be in Heisman conversations. I mean, the numbers he's putting up are outstanding. There's been some great Michigan running backs. He's inserting himself into that category. We talked last week, before the bye, we said, what do we want to see? The wide receivers take a step forward. And I really wanted to see Andrew Marsh with more opportunities. And it sounds like Sharon Moore saw exactly what he wanted to see from that game, that he thinks they have a legitimate wide receiver to go alongside McCauley and Andrew Marsh. That's great. And then finally for Bryce Underwood, not a perfect game, but each week, and this is to be expected and really encouraging, taking steps in strides. The next step now, and I know this is a big conversation, is he's got a great fastball. Need to get to an off speed a little bit, especially when you're throwing to your fullback or some other guys. Great fastball, but we need to take a little pepper off of it, Yogi. I know the receivers will say you got to catch everything, but Bryce, that'd be the next step for him is go to the off speed pitch a little bit.
Okay, I like a little playoff baseball. Well done right there. Jeff Levering's fired up. Look, I'll say this. I want to start with Wisconsin. I think they deserve a lot of credit. They played so hard. I mean, you watch that game back, there's no loafs, there's no lay down. Luke Fickell's squad came to play. I thought it was a really complete game, and I know it's a challenge for them. They're on their third starting quarterback, but they deserve a lot of credit for going in this environment. And to me, they hung. I get they have to score, and it wasn't the game points-wise, but they didn't look like they didn't belong, in my opinion. And I think that's important to know because I know there's a lot of dialogue around that program. So that's what my eyes told me there. I think on the other side, to your point in Michigan, Donovan McCulley, like finally, like to me, to watch him make plays put a huge smile on my face. I remember, we all know his path to get to Michigan. And the plays that he made, they were contested plays, to my point earlier about Wisconsin. They were there at times. It was just 6 inches or a beautiful catch and tuck away from pressure from him. I mean, look, you're looking at it right now. I mean, it was awesome to see that. I have not seen that from a Michigan wideout in quite some time. And to see that, to me, is going to be a big storyline heading into this game against an SC team that had given up a bunch of explosive plays down the field. They're going to need to do that. I don't think they can just hand it off to your Heisman candidate, Jake, and expect to win a bunch of games. They're going to have to find ways to make plays down the field. This must give Bryce and this passing game a ton of confidence to finally consistently make explosive plays against a Big Ten opponent.
5 completions of 25 yards or longer in that game. And now, as you say, Yogi, they're taking on SC. And this is the first time we've seen the Trojans since that game against Illinois where that Illini offense picked them apart. So I've got to believe for an SC team that, like Michigan, I mean, these teams are in the college football playoff race, very much in that race with one loss. But they got to figure out the defense. I got to believe that's a huge point of emphasis this week for Lincoln Riley coming into this one. What do you make of the Trojans in this matchup?
You know, really the last 2 weeks, right, because they came off a bye. This is another one of those CFP entrance exams like we had a couple weeks ago. I just love that phrase because you look at the schedule, at least for Michigan, like they win this one. It looks pretty favorable pretty much down the stretch until we know what happens at the end of the season in that ball game. For SC, it's Kamari Ramsey. Let's not forget, like, it's easy to light up an SC defense based on what happened in year 2 when Lincoln Riley was there. And then we saw growth last year. Kamari Ramsey is the Caleb Downs of the USC defense. He had food poisoning before the Illinois game. It wasn't like he had it on Tuesday, and they knew all week. It was the morning of the game. So I just say that to pump the brakes on, like, oh, my gosh, they don't have a defense. And I know you're not saying that, but I think that could be a narrative that could get out there. I expect him to be back. I think the other challenges up front for them on the offensive line. Will Elijah Page be back? DeAndre Reed at center. Can they move the line of scrimmage? And then defensively, what does this front seven do? Right, we thought they were formidable in that regard. We loved what this defensive front did the first few weeks of the season. But against Illinois, it wasn't what we had come to expect. They're going to have to your point, strap up both sides of their chin strap because it's a very physical offensive front, to your point on how they run the football, the Bryce Underwood run game. I mean, this is going to be as physical as we get. To me, if I'm tracking this thing, I'm looking at time of possession and how many possessions are in the game. And I would imagine, I mean, think of the schools of thought for both of these teams. Lincoln Riley's teams can go. They want to run football, but they can go. Makai Lemon, Jacoby Lane, they'll move the ball, I think, against Michigan. The challenge is, if they move it, are they getting 3 or are they getting 7? And then does Michigan come back with an 11-play drive and take 8 minutes off the clock? I think when we get into the third quarter, halfway through it, check the possessions, check the time of possession. I think that'll give you the story in the game.
Yeah, I'm with you, Yogi. I feel like this is just a clashing of identities, and I think your point to Kamari Ramsey coming back is a big storyline in this game. I do believe Michigan's going to run the ball just because that's who they are, but the question is, what happens when it gets to the second or third level? Why I love Justice Haynes is he's been due in breaking off big-time runs consistently every single game. Well, that's why you have a safety that's a sure tackler and a key piece of your defense back there. What happens when Haynes breaks it to the second level? Is it an 8 or 10-yard carry or a 45-yard touchdown that rips the heart out of your defense? Big storyline. And then when USC has the ball, I think it's a race against time. We know Wink Martindale is going to bring pressure. Can USC and their passing attack get the ball out to their weapons before Michigan gets home? Michigan has a young secondary. It was good to see Zeke Berry back, but aside from that, they've been relying on a lot of freshmen, and they have youth in their. This is a big, big test for them. Can the pass rush get home and make life uncomfortable?
This is a team that's 3rd in the nation in passing offense in USC, so a huge challenge, no doubt, for anyone that they go up against, including that Michigan secondary. So that's a huge game out west. I would say the biggest game out west, at least on paper, is the one in Eugene, Oregon. It'll be the 3rd-ranked Ducks against the 7th-ranked Hoosiers. Oregon taking an 18-game home win streak into this one. That's the longest in the nation. They've still never lost a Big Ten conference game. In fact, the last team to win there as a member of the Big Ten was Jerry DiNardo's Hoosiers in 2004. So I feel like I've mentioned that now twice in 2 days. I maybe have met my quota for giving Jerry his props. But how do you see this matchup?
Well, I mean, let's use that word. It's like Pee-wee football, where you hear football is a game of matchups. And we got seriously just such great matchups in here. 2 complete alphas at head coach, Dan Lanning and Curt Cignetti. I mean, those 2 guys are going to empty the clip in this game. They're going to have their teams ready. I've seen it. Quarterback 1, quarterback 2 in college football with Dante Moore and Mendoza right here. That's a great matchup. 4 coordinators that have been outstanding. There's going to be NFL scouts here. I was thinking they might as well just send Roger Goodell at this point because they're NFL players all over the field. There is a few matchups that I'm interested in seeing. I believe Mendoza and Surratt and Omar Cooper, the Indiana passing game is going to be by far the biggest test that Oregon's secondary has faced. And we know they have young guys there in the back end. Brandon Finney's a true freshman. He's been playing great. This is a big-time test. And then Indiana's run defense, since Cignetti got there, has been outstanding. I mean, they've been tough aside from a big run that they let up against Notre Dame and aside from some of what they gave up against Ohio State. To me, even with all the bells and whistles that Oregon has on offense, the foundation is their ability to run the ball and then get into creative play action. So can the Hoosiers win the line of scrimmage, which has been one of their big strengths and why their team has succeeded since Cignetti got there?
Hey, I just want to add to the Jerry DiNardo note. Rhett Lewis, he was on that squad too. So you got 2 more bites of the apple, Dave, if you want to, as the week goes on. He was there for that as well. Look, I'll say this. While this Indiana team has not been to Autzen, Fernando Mendoza has actually called the game when Cal went there a couple years ago. So he's familiar with the confines. I think that is a huge deal. I think when Ohio State went there a year ago, it was kind of like, whoa. This thing is on top of you, Jake. You've been there a couple times. This crowd has a factor. Game day is going to be there. It's going to be juiced up. I mean, this will be a vibe. Fernando Mendoza has experience within that vibe. I think that is a huge part of this thing. The number one part, though, if Indiana is going to beat Oregon, they have to be able to run the football. They have to be able to run the football. Bottom line, they have to be able to win at the line of scrimmage and sustain at the line of scrimmage. You know, at home, Tosh Lupoy and company, the defensive coordinator, they're going to bring some pressure. They're going to get after this offensive front. So can Fernando's arm beat the coverage, beat the pressure? That's what I'd be looking at if I was calling this one from the booth. And then on the flip side, to your point, I think this Indiana defense is salty, and I don't think they get enough play. They don't get enough respect nationally. And they are going to try to put some heat on Dante Moore and to steal it from Urban Meyer. Schematic change, opponent is flat, and the human spirit. Neither one, I think, is going to dramatically change schematically, except maybe inside the red zone. Look for it there. Who can come away with 7 versus 3? Nobody's going to be flat in this game. Autzen doesn't allow that. And then the human spirit. This is going to be fun because now Oregon went from nobody talking about them except us to the world talking about them. And they should in major college football. So this is a different spotlight. Everything is for the first time with this new roster and Dante Moore and company. So I'm so curious to watch how they navigate this thing. Had a chance to talk to Dan Lanning last week. Said, hey, I'm preparing for Indiana. He goes, it's Oregon week. We are just preparing for ourselves. So they know that. They're front loading that. He's as good as anybody there. But the players still have to do it. I'd be really curious early on in the ball game what that is like in Eugene.
Well, you talk about early on in the ball game. That's what Indiana needs to survive, right? Because Oregon's been getting out of the gate so well. They've outscored opponents 120-16 in the first half so far this year. That's good. They've had a little distance between themselves and the opponent. I mean, but to your guys' point, there's no obvious weaknesses here, right? You got 2 teams, top 6 in the nation scoring offense, top 6 in the nation scoring defense. What gives? Does anything give? We shall see, but it should be just a great game. Washington celebrating what for most of Saturday seemed like a most unlikely result. They scored the final 24 points of the game to top Maryland 24-20. The first conference road win since joining the Big Ten. Was the Huskies' largest come-from-behind win in 5 years. And, Jake, you were there. What did you learn about the Huskies?
Well, that they are a team with a fighting spirit, that they have the ability to win these coast-to-coast games. I mean, this has been a challenge for Jed since he joined the conference. And, I mean, it was truly the definition of a tale of two halves. And, you know, listening to Jed Fish, and they post the game clips, there was no major halftime change or halftime adjustment. It was just like, hey, Damon Williams, we trust you. We need you. You just go do what you do. We're going to continue to put the ball in your hands. And I think the big story was when Maryland lost Sidney Stewart to targeting, and then Zahir Mathis left the game briefly with an injury. They were going after the left side of the Washington offensive line, which was, you know, blown up because of injuries, both last week and in game. Suddenly, Damon has time. He starts hitting Denzel Boston. How about Desmond Roebuck, the true freshman, with the big catch? They just put the ball back in Damon's hands and said, we trust you. Lead us. And he did exactly that. And then, of course, Jonah Coleman, all he needs is more opportunities, and he's going to make the most of them. But it really, Yog, it was just a matter of pure execution. Maryland was executing perfectly in the first half. They didn't do as much in the second half. Washington took advantage. Great comeback.
Yeah, it was a fun game to listen to. You guys did a great job, and then also to study back. And I think this league, isn't it fun because the coaching, the schematics are so impressive. I know people love college football, us included, but it feels a little like NFL light at times because these games are so tight. It's these little decisions, these schematic decisions. Ted Monachino, NFL background. Jed Fish, NFL background. Pep Hamilton, NFL background. Like, you just start going through the league, and then this specific game is just really fun to study. I'm with you. I think this young team of Washington is going to grow before our eyes. And they've got some veterans, Jonah Coleman being one of them, 26 touches. Big ball will go through him. Damon Williams, you watched him grow. You watched him not make the same mistake twice. You know, I watched him at the end of the half take a couple hits and then came out in the third quarter. Maryland drives down, didn't flinch. And I think that's just showing a sign of a team that is connected. They're so young. It's kind of like last year was year zero for Jed Fish because he got the job so late and so many new faces late. This feels like year one, and they're growing. And look out. I mean, they're going to be a dangerous out, much like Maryland. So it was an incredible football game to go back and study. For Washington, to your point, it is a big deal for them to go and get that one on the road. I know they said they got one against Washington State in the rivalry game, but to go all the way to the East Coast, where we know what happened a year ago when they played Rutgers, it was a challenge. And I think to see them get that win in that style just signifies that Jed Fish has this thing going in the right direction.
Different to win a conference road game. You kind of want to shed that label, and they did that, and we will see whether they're able to build on it again. They come home, they'll face Rutgers this weekend. That is the Friday game, and then we got a full slate on Saturday as well. So get started with Big Ten Tailgate live from East Lansing before the Spartans host the Bruins. Then countdown to kickoff takes you on the field before the action begins. It all starts Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. And Yogi, Michigan State trying to bounce back from a loss to Nebraska. Don't look now with the Huskers, guys. They have one loss on the year. You know how many ranked teams they have left on their schedule with Penn State dropping out of the poll? The answer is 0. They do not have a single ranked team left on their schedule. The schedule sets up really, really well for Nebraska. So how well equipped do you believe they are, Yogi, to take advantage of it?
Well, I'm going back and watching that game. I'm going to do the game you just mentioned, UCLA, Michigan State this weekend. And to me, they just kept hanging. You see the final score late at night when you're flying home, and you're like, oh, they must have just rolled. No, they were down. I mean, this is a heck of a game up until really the last half of the fourth quarter. And I know the wind was a big factor, but take all these things out of it. This is a team that isn't hurting themselves. Last year, they were 78th in the country in penalties per game. They're sitting at 16th at 4.4 per game. They're not turning the ball over. I mean, they're just doing the things that allow you. Again, I said NFL light. Like, you got to do these little things to win games, and they're executing when they need to. You know, they make some adjustments on the offensive front, which hopefully will solidify things in that regard for them. They have to be able to run the football. They clearly have a dynamic quarterback. The receivers keep making plays. Special teams was a huge story for them, and really for Michigan State in terms of what they have to clean up, but a huge story for them in terms of executing that. And I'll end it with this. And Jake, you and I have talked offline about this one, but they looked as fast as they've looked all season long. They look to me as athletic as they have all season long. And that to me says, I am playing with tremendous confidence. I am not competing with any fear in my mind. I am cutting it loose. And I love what Matt Rule said even on the block punt. He said, I want you to go make that block punt. Like, even if you get a penalty, go for it. Like, go as fast and as hard as you can. I think we're seeing the best version of this team. I really do with where they sit here in midseason. And you're right. I mean, it's CFP entrance exam kind of every week now for Nebraska. So looking forward to watching them again as the season continues and, of course, this weekend.
You know, Yo, we can finally have that conversation and have a serious conversation about their CFP potential. And you highlighted a few reasons why. This felt like the game a few years ago, the exact game Nebraska loses. And you mentioned the turning around of penalties, the turning around of their turnover margin. Special teams was a significant net negative during some of those dark years for Nebraska. Special teams is now a net positive, and I give a ton of credit and shout out to their special teams coordinator, Coach Eckler. And Ja'Cory Barney is a dynamic playmaker. I mean, special teams is a plus for the Huskers right now. Coming off that Michigan game in the bye week, Matt Rule said, we got to challenge the rushing defense. Extremely disruptive. Gave up 86 yards on the day, 4 sacks, 12 TFLs. Javen Wright is a guy that's flying around all over the field. The defense took a step. The next level, if you want to be a playoff team and you want to beat the best teams in college football, there's a lot of dynamic pass rushers in our conference. I know they switched around the tackle situation a little bit, but to me, you got a really great quarterback in Dylan Raiola that's not quite trusting his pass protection on the edge. I don't know what that looks like, but that's the next step for Nebraska to take.
That was a rough game for both offensive lines, frankly. They both struggled in pass protection. Nebraska's defense they've given up one pass play over 20 yards. There's no one else in all of college football who's given up fewer than 5. They've given up 1.
It's a good unit.
No, they're really good. And give John Butler a lot of credit, right? I mean, there was kind of a lost Tony White. What are we going to do? Mm-hmm. What they're going to do is continue playing great defense. That's what they've done. And to Yogi's point, special teams really good, and to your point as well. So, lot to like. Yes. Our big status brought to you by Gatorade, and focusing in on Julian Sayin. What a night against Minnesota, completing 85% of his passes with 3 TD tosses in Ohio State's win. As great as that completion percentage was, best for a Buckeye in 4 years, truthfully, he's been in that neighborhood most of the year. He's leading the nation with a completion percentage a shade over 80 on the season. It gets us to our quarterback spotlight. And Ohio State was 3rd in the nation in pass efficiency last year. You lose your offensive coordinator, you lose your quarterback. A lot of thought of how will they get back to that level. Guess where they are this year? 3rd in the nation in passing efficiency. What have you seen from Julian Sayin?
I mean, I've just been so impressed by him. I think the only thing holding him back from legitimate Heisman conversation has been maybe not the branding of the last name and just conservative play calling. But I can see each week Ryan Day opening up and giving him more and more trust. And why not? Because every opportunity Sayin's been given, he's taken full advantage of it. You look at his throw chart, which shows throws left, middle, right, at all 3 levels, and it's all green. He succeeds. There's no weakness to his game. He's been outstanding. And, the last thing I just remember at this point last year, we'd say, man, Will Howard, we're nitpicking. Will Howard just couldn't complete the deep ball. We're not saying that for Julian Sayin. He's able to make every single pass and just checking every box when given the opportunity from Ryan Day and his play caller, Brian Hartline.
I'll be honest, we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, this was the Elite 11 MVP when he came out of high school. He was as pure of a passer as we've seen, a la Trevor Lawrence type comp as a passer at that stage with us in those summer camps. And then you watch him in the games, to your point, he's a true point guard. Right? He's not a Heisman candidate because his receiver, Jeremiah Smith, is the best player in the world. Right? That's probably a version of why. I mean, the weapons he has. So I just love the discipline and discernment he has in terms of getting the ball out on time. And then last week, taking it in the face to Max Clare, right? Understanding when to get outside the pocket. Those little things have continued to stand out as every week has progressed.
10 completions of 40 yards or longer. It's tied for 1st in the nation, to your point on throwing the ball deeper than they did a year ago. And again, facing an Illinois team that has struggled in pass defense coming up this week. Hot off the presses this hour, Braden Smith, the preseason player of the year in Big Ten hoops. Of course, he won the player of the year last year after being named the preseason player of the year. He's also the lone unanimous choice to the all Big Ten team, 10-member team, which was also announced this morning. Hoop season nearly upon us. We're all over it over the next 2 days. Don't miss wall-to-wall coverage of Big Ten basketball media days. The women are tomorrow. The men are on Thursday, both days at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. It is time to regale us with tales from the road. And Yogi, you were in West Lafayette this past weekend. We'll let you lead it off.
Well, it was a week of firsts. First time with Mark Followell, first time at the Leaps Coffee Shop on campus. Highly recommend that. And then first time calling a rivalry game, right? Breakfast Club, the Cannon Trophy. It was an incredible experience. And then I had the whole row to myself on the way home, watching you guys have a banger with the Maryland UW game.
Well, we've talked about this show, how it's that point in the season with injuries and teams are shuffling rosters. So we had to do the same, Yogi. I want to give you a shout out for saying thanks for letting me get Guy Haberman in the booth. It was his 40th birthday, so we were able to get him a little birthday candle and a coffee cake because Jeff Levering was calling a playoff game. So shout out to the Brewers. Musical cheers, Dave.
Yes, and you could have left all of your luggage in College Park.
Headed back this weekend.
You're headed back this week to see the Terps and the Huskers. Remember, again, Hoops Media Days over the next 2 days, so no Big Ten today, tomorrow, or Thursday. I will see you on Friday, a rare appearance. I get to be reunited with Wani. Can't wait. See you then.